Hello everyone, my name's Jeff Lambert. I'm a Senior Regional Sales Director for Boston Mutual Life Insurance, and I'm responsible for Illinois, Wisconsin, and most recently Minnesota. Looking back and looking at some of the important things I think that for me in my life and getting to this point, and certainly I don't view myself as a success. I look at this as a continuing project trying to get there. But things that have been very important to me in life have been trying to be an effective communicator, having significant relationships, and making sure that you control the things that you can control and not be concerned about the others, and mainly your attitude and your effort. Most of my positions in the last 35 years have been because of a significant relationship with someone. Now, I say significant because I mean something meaningful. It's not somebody that you just happen to meet. It's somebody that you've got something in bond with, something in connection, something that means something. And that's oftentimes when you go through adversity and stress and you're able to continue those relationships and build some of those relationships and the strength of that relationship through those tough times, that's really what you end up with is some solid bonds with people. And what I realized as I was interviewing, I thought I wanted to find a job with an insurance company because I had the insurance background there, but I ended up getting a job through a friend of mine, through my brother-in-law's friend, to sell automotive training tapes over the phone. So that was the early 80s, mid-80s. I did that for a year, but it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't gratifying. It wasn't getting me where I felt good about it, that I felt like I was growing. So another friend of mine was doing something. He looked to be successful, and looks can be deceiving, although I found out later he was successful. But because he had enough of those indicators that it looks like things were going well for him, I pursued a career with him. I went out and bought a beautiful sport coat. Now this is again the mid-'80s. It was plaid. I bought some plum slacks, which I'm telling you, I was looking good. Met a guy who was interviewing for him, and keep in mind, I had already gone through 4 interviews where I didn't get positions. So I met this guy. I was 21, 22 years old. Met him at a bar. Found out that he had been there for a while when I interviewed with him. Again, I think I even had a pocket silk that might have matched my plum slacks at that point. I sat down. The guy ordered a drink for me, and what he did was he said, "Yeah, I hear you're looking for this position." He said, "Give me your hand." So I reached my arm out to him. He touched my wrist, checked for a pulse, and said, "You're hired." Right? So the fact that I had a pulse for him was good enough. But more importantly, he knew that I was good friends with somebody that he had a lot of respect for. So it was that significant relationship that was important, that meaningful relationship. And what I actually did was I sold cemetery property, graves, door to door on the south side of Chicago. I was responsible. We'd be in at 7 o'clock every morning, typically every night till 10 o'clock, worked every day, had every other Sunday off, and still continue to work weekends as well. So hard work. What I learned was the hard work can help you get things, but you have to put in the effort. I didn't know how to sell. I was selling over the phone. It didn't matter. But face-to-face sales was a challenge for me. So what I had to do was I actually went to some seminars, and I watched some people who were really good at selling, and I became a student of that game. So I did not have the skill set to be successful with what I thought I wanted to do, so I had to go out there and really earn the right to be successful. I put in the effort. Those tools to help me sell put me in a position to have more choices and options moving forward. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I learned. I moved out to California, and this is talking about also the importance of relationships, but I want to introduce a little something here about doing the right thing, okay? Because when I moved out to California, I was recently married. This is 1989, 1990, recently married about a year. My wife and I had just purchased a house. We got a little puppy. We had planned on living there for a long time, and I kind of got a sense of that when I first started working there. But what I realized was they didn't have. There was no moral depth there at all. They just weren't doing the right things. Later that day, we made decision to pack up. We talked to our family. My father-in-law was driving out or flying out to drive home one of our cars. And I went in and I told the company face to face. I said, "This is not for me. Gonna have to leave." While we're driving back, our house is sold. I don't have a job. We lost our dog. Fortunately, we didn't have kids at that point. My wife also couldn't transfer back what the organization was. So both of us are unemployed. But it was the right thing to do because I was not going to continue to pour my life into an organization that felt that way. As it turns out later, I found out that 5 years later, both of those guys actually were arrested for embezzlement and did prison time. So I saw it, right, and I felt it. Not only pouring your life into something, but pouring your life into something that means something, right? It's the effective communication, it's the significant relationships, the ability for me to reach out to somebody as we're driving home, to call somebody that I worked with my first job out of college, the training tapes that I was selling over the phone. I called that guy, and he said, "Jeff, I wonder what you were doing now, because we've got an opening. I'd love to have you come back in." So on the way back home, I was able to get a job for more money than I was making out there with a guy who I'm still great friends with to this day. Did that for about 10 years, and then, much like we have a pandemic going on right now, something happened in 2008 where there was a depression, quote unquote, kind of hit the economy. One of the first things to go, I was in the automotive business at that point, one of the first things to go was the car business. Dealerships didn't even know if they were going to be hanging on to their franchise, let alone be able to pay outside people to come in and help their employees. So I found myself now without an industry, right? It wasn't that I didn't have a career, it was without an industry. And then I was talking to a couple friends of mine that I'd met in college, and one of these guys said, Lambert, and Lambo was my nickname, he said, "Lambo, why aren't you doing insurance?" This guy worked for a large national company, and he said, "Well, I'd love to have you come in and help me run Chicago." So again, this took about a month or two of communication, but a very good friend of mine who I have to this day, I spoke to him again yesterday, to this day have good, solid, meaningful relationship with, he and his family. Helped me into a position where I worked for this organization for 8 years. It was phenomenal. As you're enjoying your ride of life, take the time to appreciate the good things, communicate well, significantly communicate well, control those things you can control, and I tell you, find yourself a good group of people that you can be around that'll help you in both good times and bad, and those are people that you'll be able to spend the rest of your lives with in a very positive way.